All right, we are live. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully, you enjoyed the lounge where you could network with people between sessions, and the arena where we've got sponsors waiting to talk to you if you've got any questions around their services. This is our first panel, and of course, we brought in the godfather of PR, Brad Fishman, and franchising. He's dialing into us all the way from Arizona. It is one of his many summer homes or winter homes he's got all over the world. And we really appreciate you doing this for us, Brad. We've got Kelsey, Bill, and Omar here as well that will be our speakers. I'm going to go ahead and pass the torch on to Brad to navigate this session. It'll go for about 30 minutes on the panel, 15 minutes of questions. You can go ahead and load in at any time under the Q&A section. And if you are brave enough, and I do encourage you to do so, hit the raised hand area. It will allow us to pull you on stage, see you live, and you can ask a question live as well, okay? So with that, I will step off the stage and hand the mic over to Brad. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott, and good afternoon, everybody. And as I like to try to joke around, I know Scott kind of mentioned today, Scott and I met back years ago, but really got acquainted really nicely when we were back at the Springboard days in Utah. And him on a snowboard. And I remember when he had 5-star. And to this day, I still remember when he sold 5-star and he comes in his new, yours was actually the first Tesla I was ever in. So that shows you it's been a while ago. But I really like to thank everybody. I thank Kelsey, Bill, and Omar, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. But by the way, I am not in my home that I own. I am in a VRBO in Scottsdale, and I'm looking for a place at the VRBO. Sherry and I just came here Monday, so we're looking in, and one of the best locations was, as you can see, is I got the Tuscan countryside behind me. So I guess probably one of the questions I should ask all three of you guys is, what would you guys do for home services in homes like that? But I guess we'll let you think about that. So I'm going to have, I'll let Bill introduce himself first, give a little bit of information, and then we'll turn it over to Omar and Kelsey.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Bill Zink, Senior VP of Marketing for Belfour Franchise Group. For anyone who doesn't know what we offer, we have some large brands like ChemDry and Enhance and 1-800 Water Damage, some medium-sized brands like Ducks and Hoods and the Patch Boys, and some smaller brands like Delta Restoration Services, and some one-year-old brands like Blue Kangaroo Packouts and Z Plumber. So we have a pretty broad spectrum across our 9 franchise brands, again, from small to 1 in 55 countries. Our parent company, Belfour Property Restoration, is the world's largest property restoration company. So we've got a lot of the benefits of a pretty strong and strong resources from a parent company. I've been at the company for about 8.5 years, and I've been with Belfour, and then prior to that, I was with a company that Belfour bought called HRI. But I've got about 30 years in marketing. Started my career kind of in the packaged goods brand management side with Unilever, and then 20 years or so in franchising with all kinds of different concepts, including food like Baskin Robbins and home services for the past 8-9 years. So that's a bit about me, Brad.
Thank you. Omar, you want to give a little background?
Sure, yeah. Since we're also saying where we're at, I'm here in the center of the galaxy in Tampa, Florida, home of two great brands, Tom Brady and the College Hunks Hauling Junk. Very excited for the Super Bowl Sunday. Go Bucks. Omar Solomon, co-founder of College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving. We pretty much do what the name says. We move stuff, we haul junk. We've got about I think over 150 franchises now. So excited to be here and talking about PR and social media.
Go ahead, Kelsey. Thanks, Omar.
Yeah, you bet. Kelsey Stewart, CEO, one of the founders of Bloom & Blinds. We're a window covering company. Probably the newest kid on this panel for sure in terms of the franchising space. Not originally from the franchising world, owned a blind company, franchised it, and now we are with 52 owners in the U.S. We've only been a franchise for about 5.5 years, so I have that challenge of trying to build that emerging brand and trying to break into the space and make myself known. I'm in Dallas, Texas. That's home sweet home, and I'm pretty excited to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Well, Kelsey, as long as you're on the camera, I'll ask you the first question. And as everybody in the audience knows, the home service space is such a competitive industry. And now we're going into talking about the PR, the social media. So Kelsey, and like I said, as you and I kind of talked before we were on here, was like your company started at one of the most difficult times this country's ever faced. Why don't you give a little background about that and how this is going? And it kind of leads into the PR, how you and your family were able to take an industry and really grow with it and change with it as time goes on, as we're going to the biggest pandemic I know in all our lifetimes. And hopefully will be the last of the pandemics in our lifetimes.
Yeah, thanks. So Bloomin' Blinds, before there was a franchise organization, was just our family business. My mom started Bloomin' Blinds effectively out of her garage. But the morning of our business incorporation was the morning of 9/11. So we filed our paperwork, and literally 2 hours later, the towers got hit. We ended up running that family-owned operation prior to the franchise organization for about 18 years, built it up into a good family business, and brought it into franchising because we had a specialization where we added repairs in addition to sales. And we're in an industry that pretty much only sells new products. So having that maintenance model, that home service kind of element, is a significant differentiator for us. In the 5 years we've been a franchise, it's been a really interesting journey, not only learning how to be a franchise, but how to tell that story on a bigger canvas. You know, when you're in small town USA, well, not Dallas, but in a just a central market, you can build those connections and kind of get your story out there a little bit easier because you're touching individuals and they're instantly connected to others. But when you open in Tampa, or you open in LA, or you open in Phoenix, you've got to make sure that when you're in a brand new market, that people who don't know you can suddenly get a sense of your story and begin to get a value of who you are. And so we, just in the last year or so, actually have engaged with Fishman. Brad, kudos to you guys. We love what you're doing. But started that journey on how to tell our story and become more of that household name and make sure that everyone knows who we are before we get there. It's been a wild ride. I'm a blind guy who started a franchise. I'm not from the franchising space. But the learning curve has been quick and enjoyable. So we're having a blast right now.
Yeah. And, you know, it's an interesting, like you said, it's an interesting ride. And everyone, as you're going through this, you know, everybody has got some large competitors, some interesting competitors, you know, and I'm going to kind of ask the same question, because kind of go over to Omar, because I met Omar and Nick and I looked at them and they were still kids they were literally kids when I met them. And now I look at them, both of them have their own kids. So it's kind of, I guess we kind of grew up with you guys. So why don't you tell Omar how you and Nick and how PR really built your story from the beginning before you really had anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, the PR is really what we built the foundation of our company on from the very early days. We launched in 2005. Back then, social media was just starting. So we often say that we were one of the first viral brands because back in 05, 06, people would take pictures of our truck and they would post it on Facebook, right? And then when Instagram came around, they would post it on Instagram, and sort of it replaced the dinner table conversation, right? Social media, I think for us, has gone from something that people talk about at the dinner table. Hey, I saw this really cool truck, or I heard this company did this really cool thing, to now they're telling 300 of their closest friends. But from the very beginning, PR was a major catalyst for our growth. From 2005, when we got our first, I think, media placement in the Washington Post, and saw the impact that had on the business. You know, we went from 1 truck to 6 or 7 trucks just from really that article. So for us, it really lit a light bulb that was like, hey, you know, this is a great way to grow. But at some point, people are going to want more than just, hey, write about our company, right? And so I think Cameron was one of the first speakers I heard, Cameron Harold, who said, you know, every morning reporters wake up trying to figure out what they need to write about. So make it easy for them. So, you know, I think for us, what we found is it's all about finding the angles. And also, you know, on the social media side, it might be the wrong panel to say this, but, you know, I think social media is overrated if you're in the home service space and if you're doing it wrong, right? Because in a lot of ways, you know, we're just like a dentist. When my dentist posts, you know, a happy Valentine's Day post on Facebook, none of us stop and click on that, right? So yes, we have to do those kind of posts, but if you're looking for ROI or you're looking for impact, it's not going to happen. Now if the dentist puts something out there and they show somebody that's never been able to afford a dentist, and then do a big before and after of this person that couldn't afford going to a dentist, and then does this big reveal for someone after they did this dental work, and now they've got this big, great smile, and sort of tell the story of this person, and they post that on social media. Now all of a sudden you have something that's engaging and that can get some shares, because for me, I think social media is not about direct ROI. It's about engagement and brand awareness first, and then sort of the rest of the things will follow.
Omar, why don't you kind of tell people of a few of the early days of TV shows you guys were on?
Well, the big one, the first one was Shark Tank, season 1, episode 1. And we had actually Damon John, who's one of the Sharks, present at our conference a week ago. And he still remembered the episode. We actually got called pigs by Kevin O'Leary. But it was really great. And it sort of put us on the first time to be on the national scale and have College Hunks, the brand, said on TV. And we still see an impact from that, right? You hear about the Shark Tank effect, and every time that reruns, we see franchise leads going up and see visits to the website. So it was a pretty cool experience.
I think being called a pig by Kevin O'Leary is probably a compliment.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And Bill, yours is interesting because, which is becoming, I know it's a big discussion during this conference, is the acquisition mode, especially in the service space. And Kelsey and I originally were, when we got in a little early, we were kind of talking about that. But Bill, you came in from the HRI, which is, the main brand, being ChemDry and Hands, and join the Belfour Franchise Group. And, what it's done with you. And I know the founder of the Belfour Franchise Group was an Undercover Boss. So it's something that PR and market has been a big part of what the growth of the Belfour Group, but also into the Belfour Franchise Group.
It has been. It's helped put Belfour as a company, and I think the Belfour Franchise Group more into people's minds, clarified what we do. The Undercover Boss episode with our CEO, Sheldon Yellen, was an award-winning show and a great episode and a great sense of sort of the company values that Sheldon has shared and instilled in the company. I've been with BFG just for the year and a half, and prior to that, 7 years with the old HRI company. And I'll tell you that, it's interesting hearing Kelsey and Omar's stories, because we do have some kind of younger, up and coming brands, several of them in our portfolio. I've spent the most of my career at this company on some of our more established brands. So the other side of the spectrum is, how do you use PR, social media, et cetera, to grow pretty mature brands? ChemDry is, 2,000 locations in the US and in 55 countries. Enhance is, closing in on 500 locations. These are big, pretty mature brands, and PR has been a way that we've been able to maintain relevancy and kind of keep ourselves in the spotlight and continue to grow awareness. So for ChemDry, we've used PR very effectively on a host of different areas, but we've launched several new services over the past several years, things like wood floor cleaning. And even during the pandemic, we launched a standalone sanitizing service and a standalone service called Micro Pro Shield that offers extended antimicrobial protection for homeowners and businesses. And we use PR as a way to gain publicity about that launch nationally, but also spotlighted some franchisees adopting those services locally. Enhance had a great opportunity because in the midst of the pandemic, people have been obviously spending a lot more time at home, whether schooling at home or working from home or both. And so there was this pent up demand of, golly, I've been spending more time in my house, and that, home remodeling project has been gnawing at me. I'm sick of looking at those tired cabinets. I'm going to get that work done. So we use PR to tap into and draw attention to the pent up demand that people had for wanting to refinish their kitchens and their cabinets and floors. And so Enhance was able to use PR to kind of catapult and take advantage of that trend. So it's different using PR for more mature brands, but we've found success using PR and social media across brands from upstart brands to 40-year-old brands, and it's been pretty effective for us. And again, we've been working with Brad, Shelley, Deb, and the team, and had a lot of success over the last several years.
So I'm going to kind of throw this out to the panel because so much for the service business, like you said, it's not the most visible thing compared to a massage concept or a new restaurant. But a lot of, let's call it, the different type of service brand are giving back to the community during this time. And it's a phenomenal way to get PR and people put it for social media. What kind of luck have you guys had using acts, we call it acts of goodwill or whatever it's doing, giving back to the community? It could be charitable things. It could be helping out in times of need. Kelsey, you want to start up there?
The honest truth is we haven't done a ton of it on the public stage. What we have done has been behind the scenes or hasn't ended up on social media. Most of our focus, honestly, was taking care of the franchise owners and making sure that they were well equipped to move forward. And then those that needed help were getting the help they needed. The stuff that we do and the giving we do, it hasn't really filtered into the brand side of things yet. We need to grow into that. There's no doubt. But what we end up doing is so far it's all been private, and we've just not tied it to the brand yet, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole idea of this type of panel is for the ideas to come, everyone to get ideas out and work. I know, Omar, you guys do a lot of it.
Yeah, we had a lot of success sort of right when COVID was hitting. We had a lot of excess capacity with our trucks, and it was one of those things where franchisees, some of them were getting the PPP stuff and wanted to do something to give back to the community. And it came up that we could offer essentially free moves for victims of domestic violence. During COVID, there was all these stats that domestic abuse was on the rise. So it was such a great story. It was a win-win because we have moved over 100 people, victims, for free. We've generated a ton of PR. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. It created a ton of goodwill. We were featured on a number of both local and national media outlets. And the great thing about it is the story kind of was so real time, right? It touched on COVID, it touched on giving back, it touched on, something that is plaguing society. So it hit sort of all those things. And then it also was able to, I think, rally our franchisees behind this because, they all were itching to do something, and it gave us kind of a rallying cry. So that was the biggest thing, present day. We also have a 1-for-1 giving social cause with Feeding Children Everywhere. So for every job that we complete, we donate two meals to a group called Feeding Children Everywhere, which helps kids in undernourished households and economic depressed areas to get access to food. So both of those things, I think, resonate a lot with the franchise system. They resonate a lot with the consumers, and then they also resonate with franchise prospects and also employees. So kind of hits everything, and it's a win-win because you're able to generate a lot of feel-good PR and then also do something powerful across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, do you want to? I know you guys do different things too.
We do. We have a probably like other businesses. We've got a strong company culture that is very much about giving back and community service. Belfour has been sort of had a reputation for that, but also just it's part of our DNA and values. And that trickles down throughout the company and also throughout all of the brands. Things we did during the pandemic, 1-800 as one of the examples was offering free sanitizing services, cleaning and sanitizing services for frontline fire departments and police stations and things like that. So, hey, just let us know. We'll come out and our franchisees would sanitize or disinfect facilities at no charge, just to help out and help keep them safe. So one of the many things that we were doing during the pandemic, but I would say even beyond the pandemic, thinking sort of longer term, our brands have been pretty committed to a lot of different types of community service and giving back. So for instance, Enhance, about a year and a half ago, started a program. Enhance does refinishing of kind of renewing wood, your existing cabinets and floors. And so the idea is that, we're not, if you rip everything out and throw it in the landfill, that's putting more in the landfill and building up that, but it's also requiring trees to get cut down and build out the new cabinets and floors. So we struck up a relationship with the American Forestry Association and to promote, the idea of renewing wood versus ripping out wood. And every time an enhanced franchisee completed a job, we would make a donation that would plant a tree. So it was both drawing attention to the landfill challenges and the wood being torn out and the fact that you can renew your wood instead of ripping it out, but also the idea of planting more trees and that were environmentally friendly. And for ChemDry, we spent about 7 years working with the National Breast Cancer Foundation and helped raise in a program about $200,000 to give back to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. And then we pivoted to a cause over the last 3 years, which was connected to an organization called Best Friends Animal Society, trying to promote rescue pet adoption, helped raise about $50,000 for that cause, because about 85% of ChemDry customers are pet owners, because they are the ones who, families and kids and pets, are creating all the messes out there. So that was a great promotion or program to both get the brand out there, but also to give back and help. The goal is to kind of reach a no-kill point in shelters by 2025, and we were attached to that cause. So it's been a great way. Both, I would just echo Omar's point. It's been a great galvanizing force within our company and our networks to get people unified behind a cause that they can all feel really good about. That's a national cause, but they can support it on a local level. So it's been good for unity and cohesion, but it's also been great in feeling kind of proud about making an impact on the brands and places that we can, kind of have a relevant fit.
Yeah, and Bill, you made a good point, like in terms of the ChemDry and sort of the clients owning pets and then doing something around pet ownership or pets in general. So, I think that's the key. It's not just doing things for the sake of doing them, but with for us, the Feeding Children Everywhere was something we surveyed our clients, and they said that childhood hunger was the biggest social cause. And then, around the domestic violence, a lot of our clients are female. So for us, the social causes we want to do we want them to skew female. So I think it's important to really know the audience and not just do things for the sake of doing them, because every single day we're going to be asked to do stuff for free or donate to this thing. But it's really finding something that makes sense with the consumer, makes sense with the franchisee, and sort of upholds those things. So I thought that's really cool the way you guys did that.
Totally agree. Relevancy and something that connects with your franchise network, but also with what your customers care about is key to getting a good partnership. So totally agree.
And it's wonderful that with what you guys do, it's giving money to some very wonderful charitable causes or doing some work, but it also makes the franchisee feel really good about themselves. And they want to be part of an organization. And I know the next panel is kind of going into lead generation, but this kind of goes back where it starts in there. People want to be involved with systems that care about their franchisees and care about giving back. And so, Kelsey, I want to throw a quick, go ahead.
Just add one quick thing is that, more and more, cause marketing is catching on and is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. And the younger generations, which are going to be all of the primary customers of the next 10, 20 years, are even more connected to, committed to, and passionate about causes and buying from services and products and companies that really believe in causes and support causes. So for all of us here and others, it's only going to get more important to be looking for ways that make sense for your company, but also find ways to give back and be part of cause marketing, because it's important for what it does for your company, but it's also more and more important, I think, for customers out there. So for the next generation, we should be thinking about that too.
It kind of goes back to the messaging of what you are, as I mentioned before, this is an extremely competitive space. And Kelsey, it kind of mentioned something, what you guys talked about before. You were doing repair for blinds when everyone else just wanted to do installations and sell. So how did you get that messaging out as you went into a franchise 6 years ago?
Well, and just to be clear, we still sell and repair or sell and install blinds too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's actually the bulk of our revenue. It's just that the repair is the differentiation. Candidates that I end up talking to are typically kind of interested in that home service space and usually have a specific interest in window coverings. We're not exactly the sexiest industry in the world. And so often somebody's had an experience or they just recently bought blinds or they know someone who owns a competitor franchise. And I very quickly try and articulate that separation that, I like to answer the question or challenge a candidate to answer the question, why does the world need another one? And I like that question because I have a really good answer for it. And so that's always part of the initial stages of the conversation is, what are you interested in us? And are you aware that we hold this separation and this difference? And so we like to joke that we market ourselves as a blind repair company that happens to sell a lot of blinds. We make sure that blind repair is the first word on our vehicles. So on our vehicles, it says repair, sales, and install. We're trying to put that differentiator out in front of everything we do, so that it is obvious to a casual glance that there's something different about us. Through the PR side, most of our PR so far has been, and primarily because we just started PR right at the height of COVID, or as COVID kicked in, it has been more about the success story of companies that are doing well in the midst of COVID. There hasn't been a ton of conversation from a PR level about that separation just yet, except the fact that we're in that home service space that is thriving in COVID, and that is just kind of a market separation. There's so many industries that are struggling. It's an oddity. We're some of the fortunate few that have been able to stay busy when everything else seems to be crumbling around us.
So this is going to kind of go back to, this is going to dovetail into the second question, because I'm going to start with the first one, is really creative ways to keep your brand in the media, keep your brand in social media. Bill, you want to start out there first? Sure.
I think we've got, a couple examples come to mind. For Enhance, one of the things that we did was we went to an agency that helped us find about 20 influencers around the country in this sort of a home improvement, home remodeling space. And we were trying to really focus on and get some attention for the fact that Enhance's finishes are factory quality, really high quality, durable finishes. And so we found a population of about 20 influencers, sent out to them a sample cabinet door that had been refinished or finished with an enhanced finish, and sent them, I think, a penny and a hammer and something else that basically said, hey, here it is. Here's the cabinet door sample. Go at it and see if you can scratch this and take off the finish. And by the way, film it and take pictures of it as a way to kind of maximize engagement. And they did that, and we got an unbelievable response from them doing it. They're surprised that they couldn't get the finish off. They posted videos, they posted pictures, they talked about how impressed they were, and it sort of mushroomed, as we know influencer campaigns can do. So that was one campaign that really was very laser focused on a particular message, and something we wanted to convey is high quality and durability. We selectively picked some high quality influencers and ended up with a really robust campaign that made a big difference. And one note about influencers for everyone who may have done this or not done this yet, it's important to think about selecting influencers who have a balance of some promotional posts, but also a lot of organic content. Because if you're only going to people that are doing high promotions, it feels a little bit less genuine and sincere, and feels more like they're kind of a, sort of a for hire influencer. Where if there's a good balance of organic content, then they tend to have more credibility and authenticity with their followers. For ChemDry's also done something unique on social media. A couple of years ago, we started a program where we've worked with a partner where we can develop national content that we approve within the marketing team, but it gets delivered to the franchisee in a localized way. Their URL, their phone number. So we approve the content. It's all brand compliant and appropriate and everything, except it gets delivered on a localized level, and a follower, local customer wouldn't know the difference. And that has been really effective because it's given our franchisees a chance to get more content and local engagement without having to do a lot of follow-up. And we're confident that it's all brand compliant because we're controlling it, but it comes across as being localized content. And those have been sort of two examples of how we use social media that have, I think, moved the needle for us on some of our brands. Omar, have you been working with influencers?
Not yet. Not on purpose. We've had some influencers do some things just without our asking. In the middle of a move, they've filmed and done some sort of funny things, but and we've seen a lot of impact from that. But so it's certainly something that's on our radar. We'd like to. It's just not something we've done yet, but I'm very interested in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, influencers is is a whole different world because, everyone thinks of influencers. You think of the big national ones, but the local influencers in the marketplace are the things that can have such an impact on businesses. And it's not like, okay, great. I mean, you talk about the Kardashians or something, and they want millions of dollars to tout your company or product. But most of them are just local little people who want to talk about, you find food bloggers, you find mommy bloggers, you find information that goes through a full PTA, and you'd be shocked about what it is. But this kind of is going to go right into my next question. And it becomes more of an interesting thing. And as we were, the four of us were on our call together, it's something that I didn't think about, but I guess it's probably something all you guys deal with right now are reviews, because reviews have become such a big part of business is what people do, and one review can, all the wonderful things you guys do can, and you can lose companies and jobs, as you've seen, because of what reviews and social media does. If any of you guys have an experience with, let's not say bad reviews, but reviews that needed to be focused on, bad reviews.
Oh yeah, I mean that's I think that's just part of doing business, right? Is having a system for how to manage the negative reviews. We've worked with. There's some agencies out there that will actually comb all the review sites and actually take a direct approach with negative reviews. I'm blanking on the name, but I'll certainly figure it out and say it later. But so there's agencies that do it. Obviously, we do the Net Promoter Score tracking, so we're able to send emails and text messages to every client that completes a job. If they leave a lower score, we're kind of preemptively getting to them before they go to the review sites. If it's a high score, we're enticing them to leave that review on Google.
Matter of fact, Scott just put a couple of them up in the Q&A. Opinion and Podium are two of those companies that do those type of things.
Podium doesn't. This is a little bit different than Podium. Podium does the actual review solicitation. This is actually, I don't think Podium actually will reach out to the negative reviews and actually try to fix them. There's a company that actually will reach out, to the negative reviews and take an active approach in trying to come to some sort of resolution with them. So Podium is great, and obviously you got Listen 360 and the ones like that for Net Promoter Score and for actual generating positive reviews. But there's some other folks out there that can help with actually fixing negative reviews.
Yeah, for us, it's been just there, as you said, Omar. It's every business is going to get negative reviews. It's a fact of life. We use some services, and one particular one that is an aggregator that allows you to solicit reviews, respond to reviews, track competitors in the markets, and it's been great. To me, the key today is you can educate franchisees and train them and coach them, and we do that regularly on how to them and their technicians ask for reviews, and some of them are great at it and some are not. But the real key in what we've learned is you have to find a way to automate it. So for us, we've built an integration between our POS system and the review application. And every time a job gets closed out, it sends out a thank you for your business message and asks for a review. And so making it turnkey and foolproof to us has been a big enabler, and we're still working our way through gaining maximum adoption there. The other part that we've done is a lot of education on, it's not just responding to the bad reviews, although you have to do that. It's also responding to good reviews. We know that Google looks at overall response rate of all of your reviews. So thanking people for a good review, as well as knowing how to reply to a negative review. And a lot of times, as we know, you can take a negative review and turn it into a big positive by showing that you care, that you're compassionate, that you want to help all of your customers have a good experience, and saying, hey, we'll reach out to you offline and try to make this right. But just that effort shows everyone that you're an active, committed owner. And that education to franchisees who tend to get scared about not wanting to reply to a negative review and let it sit there, as we know, that's the worst thing you can do. So
horrible.
Education, a good platform, and integrations have been part of our strategy.
Well, before we get too far, let me see if I can answer any Q&A. We've got about 10 minutes left. If not, I'm going to keep on firing questions out to my panelists, because I have a ton of them here. As I told them, we're not going to get through half the questions we did. So do I have any questions from the audience? Well, when they're thinking about one.
There's some in the Q&A. If you go to the Q&A, you can see them.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, Omar.
No problem.
One of the questions, what does the agency use for social influencers? Anybody have a good answer for that?
I know we use an agency. I'm not sure of the name of the agency.
As you do cause marketing, do you track the results other than positive PR and having a positive financial impact on your companies? That's a good question.
You can't. I mean, the short answer is no. I think if you're looking for direct ROI, don't do it. It's not something that's going to happen instantaneously, and it's not going to be something that you're going to necessarily be able to measure the day after it happens. I'd say the best way to measure these things is through some sort of brand awareness surveys that you're doing, you know, in your franchisee local markets. There's companies that can do that for you. So in our case, it's, you know, if you can name a moving company, you know, in blank city, and they say College Hunks, you know, and they take, you know, a sample size of X amount of people, is there a trend that more people are hearing and talking and knowing about your company? You know, the other way I would say to measure it would be sort of based on what I would call, I don't know if it's a word, but viability of it. So, you know, if you're spending $100 to boost a post, you know, if you spend $100 to boost the Happy Valentine's post, nobody's sharing it, right? If you spend $100 to boost the free moves for domestic violence victims and it's getting 1,000 shares, you know, now you can start to track kind of like the effect that $1 of ad spend costs on, or what the return on sort of eyeballs are, right? But if, in my opinion, and it might just be me, but it's not something that you're going to necessarily just be able to track day one. And if it's something that you need to have an ROI on, there's probably a lot of things you can do, like pay-per-click, you know, go out and buy leads, you know, make sure all those buckets are filled before you're going out and doing some like heavy brand awareness type advertising.
What I will say is, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to build on what Omar said. I agree. You can't really put an ROI to it. The only way that we've tried to answer that question, try to measure or get a metric around it, is to estimate earned media impressions. So it's one thing to, you know, look at paid media, but if you're looking at how to spend your dollars and you look at earned media, there is an advantage and a benefit of things like PR and social, because it comes across as being authentic content, and not to take anything away from paid advertising, whether it's streaming video, TV, radio, whatever. Those are all relevant and important in the mix. But something that's authentic, like a social post or PR, comes across as being they digest it differently. So earned impressions is an important way to think about it. And
Bill, how are you tracking that specifically? Like how are you tracking an earned impression?
I think we've done that with the help of with both Fishman and the influencer, just basically looking at impressions.
How many impressions?
And trying to, you know, sort of put a value to that, basically.
Got it.
And one thing that really does help, especially that is doing PR in your local markets. And I think if you're really looking for the return, the best return, it's going to be harder to look at from a corporate level, but from the franchisee level, I think you can really show some positive ROI for them. Obviously, it's only 5, 6, 7, whatever the number corporate gets on the, you know, on the revenue from that. But I think it's really helped some of the franchisees do really well.
And also think about all the great content. So you have an influencer campaign that you run that creates people who, you know, for instance, in that example with Enhance, try to scratch off the finish. Think of all of the ability you can use with that, put on websites, socially share that, create a blog post. The ability to create content and explode that content out to more places is incredibly valuable. So it's hard to quantify it in its own vacuum, but if you think about the extension of it and how you can use it in lots of different avenues, it becomes even more valuable because you can use it in lots of ways.
Okay, the next question, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. It said, "Hi guys, how would you recommend to outsource PR or do it in house?" So this one, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
They pay experts to be experts.
Who wants to take that one first? Kelsey, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Again, as a small brand without a ton of internal resources, it doesn't. We believe in paying experts to be experts. You can't be good at everything, and until you're a massive company like a Belfour, you've got teams and departments. Like the ability to have those connections and to know who to call or how to get yourself in front of the right messenger. Well, you got to know a lot of people before you can compete with the specialist.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, and I'll answer one quick.
Go ahead, Brad.
You know, and I'll be the first one to tell you, hey, we've been around. Our firm has been around since 1991. If you're choosing as an emerging brand, if you're choosing between an operations person and a PR firm, hire the operations person as an emerging brand. You know, PR people, you can really do it on your own. As Kelsey said, experts are what experts do. But if you know, sometimes with a small little system, you can do it on your own if you really need to do it. But you know, this is someone who's been around this space for a long time. The most important thing is how you're going to help your franchisees succeed, because PR is way easier to do when your franchisees are successful.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned this to Brad yet, but we've been planning to bring it in-house for a while now. And just kidding. No, we've had a long relationship. We've had a lot of success in the PR side, and I think finding a PR partner, if you're going to go outside, finding someone who has not only the context, but is a good partner in coming up with creative ideas on strategy. I would say some of the biggest successes we've had on PR have been spotlighting individual franchisee stories where we just couldn't really do that. If you're a small or larger franchise, it just takes so much legwork and time and some connections and how to do it to get a local story picked up by someone and then get them on TV or get them picked up by a major paper. I just don't think it's efficient to do it from our perspective. And we've had some good success, you know, national stories, but also some tremendous local stories that have kind of caught fire and in some cases become national stories.
You know, Bill, we were just a moment ago, we were talking about the ROI of PR and how it's really hard to gauge. And that was really kind of from a revenue standpoint. But then there's that internal organization factor where your franchisees want to see that the brand is out there trying to promote the business and help them build into that household. If you're not already a household name like we're not, our franchise owners are always looking for how are we not only taking the revenue they send us through royalties, but also the National Ad Fund. Like, what are you guys doing with that money? Are you guys fighting for the greater benefit of the brand? And when we jumped in and started our PR program, they began to see the external impact of trying to grow the brand. And that's done a lot of good for us. Again, hard to measure, but in the relationship between the franchise and the franchise owners, they seem to be pretty grateful and appreciative. So there's a component of ROI mixed in internally too.
Yeah, that's a great point. When franchisees see other franchisees spotlighted in PR, there's a high level of pride and value. And not that they don't like to see the brand promoted nationally, but when they see other franchisee stories told, it's very, it becomes kind of an emotional lift for the network, I think. So that's a great point, Kelsey.
So Jonathan, I'm going to answer your next question. And the question is, are there specific PR tactics that you can share that have worked well, especially for startup franchisors? And you pretty much heard what it is. You want to talk about founder stories, how they started the brand. That goes back to what Omar did, Kelsey's story, Kelsey's family story, you know, talk about Bill and what they've done. And really, people want to hear about successful franchisees because and I joke around about this, there's no franchisee that ever buys into a system and goes, I want to be average. They all think when they're coming in with the gung-ho attitudes, I'm going to be a great franchisor. So they see other franchisors who have done really well, and they said, wow, they put themselves in their place and go, that really works both for me and my family as I'm making this investment into becoming a franchisee. and also as I'm buying into a brand. They want to see brands that care about them. So you talk about all the great things, and these, Kelsey, Bill, and Omar, you can tell they have the passion about what they're doing, the passion of the brands they're working for, and that's by far the most successful technique people read about. Anyone want to add to that?
Hey, Brad, I'm just going to jump in real quick. We've reached the end of our time for this panel. You guys have done a fantastic job. I'm sure I can speak for everyone that's been attending. Lots of gold nuggets. Thank you again, Omar, Bill, Kelsey, Brad, for doing this for us. I'll just point out that right after this, if you could go ahead to each of the speakers and moderators, head to the lounge, which is on your left. Go to one of the reserved tables. I'm sure people have some questions here they want to ask you directly. Please go there right after this. We're going to take a 15-minute break to allow for that one-on-one conversation with each of you. Thank you all again for doing this, and we'll see you all in about 15 minutes at our next session.
Thanks, Scott, for having me. I really want to thank my panelists.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
You got
Appreciate
it.
it.